Alright, let's go over the short rate. You guys is 13, is that right? What was the slope of this line? Undefined. You had a vertical line, so that should have been undefined. That kind of rhymed, and I didn't mean it to. Is this a function? I heard no, I heard yes. Peyton, I know.
Because they all have the same y-axis.
Does that matter?
X-axis.
It only matters if the x is different. So the x is different, so this is a function. For number 3, you need to put -5 in for x. And simplify and figure out what that is. So when you do that, you get 2 times 25 minus 3. This would become 50 minus 3, so 47. Yes. Questions on those first 3? Crystal, do you have a question? For number 4, you need to say the domain and the range. This is a list of numbers. So for your domain, you need to list them left to right. What would those numbers be? You can say them out loud. Not that one. That's only if it's a line and it's continuous.
Oh.
-4, you have to count every single point.
Positive 3.
You have to count every single point.
-2.
There you go.
That's 2.
For the range, you have to count every single point, lowest to highest. What would that be?
2, 3, 4.
Remember, if it's not a continuous line, we can't put the less than or equal to's. The random order pairs, it should be every single point. Without solving this, how many solutions does this have? 1. Now you could solve it and figure out what that solution is. Did anyone solve that? That's what you got?
It's x equals
-13. Is that what we got? Does anyone need to see how we got that? I didn't really ask for that part, but knowing that would just be one solution. Right. Before we continue doing the work on the maze, I wanted to mention one thing about the steps because I misspoke when I said this earlier. You guys asked about the second section where you have to do it algebraically, and I think I said that you could choose. I looked back at it, that was not the case. There are specific questions that say which ones to do substitution, which ones to do elimination. So you will need to know how to do both, so keep that in mind. What did you say?
Super.
Alright, so we did the first one and we got what an answer? 75. So we are going to continue working through this together. Take out the same piece of paper you were working on. Or if you lost that one and need another one, get another one out. And the dark blue crate and the unit 6 folder.
So why did you, is it just a rule that you have to do this? Yeah. Duh. Never mind.
Okay.
I just answered that question.
Okay.
I forgot it was-
Dark blue crate, unit 6 folder.
Yeah.
I'm typing right now. That's what I'm typing right now. Monkey.
Yes. Thank you.
If you haven't already, read through this.
Here's the shark.
And tell me what you found was important.
I know. 8 hours. hours.
10.25 for what? And 8.75 for what? What does that represent?
Oh, for the hour.
The donut shop?
To the donut.
And the bookstore?
And you get 109. What are we looking for?
How many hours do you work at?
How did we solve the first one? Because I don't remember. Substitution and elimination.
Oh, what kind of calculator?
Okay. So this one we can do by substitution or graphing. We're gonna do all 3 methods for all of these. We're just gonna rotate through them. If anyone wants to do this by substitution, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Graphing, raise your hand. Substitution 1, because those are the people that voted.
What?
We're going to do substitution for this one and graphing for the next one. Alright, so for this one, because it does not give us variables, we need to make variables. What don't we know?
How many hours do you work at the shop?
How many hours he worked at the bookstore, how many hours he worked at the donut shop. So we can call that D and B, S and B, whatever, X and Y, it doesn't matter. That's what I'm gonna call them, yes. And we have to be very specific when we define our variables. It can't just be donut shop and bookstore, because that doesn't tell me what this means. So this needs to be the number of hours worked at the donut shop and the number of hours worked at the bookstore. My handwriting is kind of sloppy today. So now that we have those 2 variables, we can start to set up our equations. We are given 4 numbers. That means 3 of those numbers are going to go together in an equation, and then the other one is going to be the total of the second equation. Anyone want to take a guess as to how we would write either of these? Okay, then you're on the right track, 1025B.
Okay, I actually got it correct.
Need to finish that though.
Class 875.
equals 196. The money goes together. This is the amount he works, or the amount he makes at the top, the amount he makes at the bookstore, total amount he makes. So all the money needs to go together.
Do I have to dollar sign?
No, you don't. You can if you want to, but you do not need to put the dollar sign. Okay, and then the other one.
D times D equals it.
Yes. The second one is going to be just D plus B equals 20. Because 20 is the total amount of hours he works altogether, and D and B both represent number of hours. So those things have to go together. Yes, Theo. Not right now, after this problem. Yes, Lily.
Never mind.
You sure?
Yeah.
Alright, since we're doing this one by substitution, and we are asked to find how many hours he worked at the bookstore. If we were to solve this second equation for D, when we substitute that back in, we'll only have B's, as in boy, and that's what we want. So if we solve this for D, substitute it in, we'll end up with B, and that's what we want.
I do not know.
Alright, so we're going to take the second equation and solve it for D, which means we would need to do what to get D by itself? Subtract B, eliminate B, but yes. We're not really eliminating it completely, just moving it to the other side. So I just did 20 minus B. If you want to do negative B plus 20, that's fine, that's the same thing. Now we're going to take this expression and substitute it into the first one where D is 1025 times 20 minus B plus 875 B equals 196. Can everyone see this, or do you need me to make it bigger? From there, start solving. Distribute 1025. Someone multiply 1025 and 20 and tell me what that is. 205. Minus 1025B.
No, not 100. 102.
Double check that.
Oh,
Running out of space. Yeah. Right. Combine your like terms. Negative 1025 plus 875 gives us
what?
combine your like terms.
19.
Double check that. Because this one's negative. If they were both positive, it would be negative. Negative 1.5B. Then we can subtract 205 from both sides.
I think 105.
Multiply 10.25 times 20. Line, negative line. And divide, and tell me what you get.
I got 6.
I believe that is the correct. 6 hours.
I forgot this. So confused.
I didn't hear what you said, I'm sorry.
Oh, did you say the same thing?
Elimination. I put it to the grace.
The fact that it's easy, the two things I get mixed up.
Different.
Fine. You could have made X and Y or something. Two different.
It's scary. I
My
was like,
brain
I'm
put
sitting
them
here like-
numbers and letters. Math is really fun. I mean,
If that's the case, change it to something else. Just remember what you changed it to.
This is the most confusing to look at all.
For the second one, read that. It's really the third because we already did one, but it's alright. And tell me what you find important in that. Kayla,
12 calories per minute.
what is 12 calories per minute?
2 calories.
On what? On the elliptical.
And 10 calories per minute on treadmill.
Okay, and then I'm gonna say that one more time, I'm sorry. She said it.
I could just highlight the entire thing.
1 hour and 670 calories.
So our totals are 1 hour and 676 calories. And we're looking for what?
How many minutes you spend it
On the elliptical. How many minutes she spent on the elliptical? So since we are graphing this one, I'm going to call my variables x and y. If you want to call them e and t, that is fine. What exactly don't we know?
How many calories?
How many minutes that she spent on both? So this will be number of minutes spent on elliptical and number of minutes spent on treadmill. Just like the example before, we were given 4 numbers, so 3 of them are going to go together, and then the other one's going to be a total for the second equation. Anyone want to take a guess as to one of the equations? That's a good.
Oh, 12 calories. 12 E
In my case, x, but if you use e, that's fine.
plus 10Y.
Or if you use t, that's fine. Equals. So it'd be 60, because everything else is in minutes. We know 1 hour is 60 minutes, so we have to change that to be minutes. With this, I'm going to put this into Desmos. I know many of you don't have that up right now. That's okay. Pretend that you did. If you wanted to do it on your calculator, remember that you would need to change these both into slope-intercept form first. That's why I'm not using that right now, because that would take more time. So I'm going to put these both into Desmos, and we're going to find out what that intersection point is. $12x plus 10y equals 676, and x plus y equals 60. So if you don't see it, you'll have to zoom out, especially because of the 676 will be a bigger number. There's 3822 would be our solution. But the question is only asking for time spent on the elliptical. That was our x. So we can answer x equals 38 minutes. So it's up to you. There might be maybe one that says show it using this method, but there might not be that at all. I have to double check. So if it doesn't say it at all, you have a choice as to how you wish to solve it. No, we don't need to solve this one at all because there's only one answer. You know this one is going to be 27, so we can skip the work for that one and move on.
How simple.
For the next one, what do you find that's important? 7 poinsettias. I'm not sure. 7 poinsettias, 7 straight wreaths.
Raise $20 more for
$201 was that total? I'm gonna have to go and sorry, say that one more time. We could, it doesn't really matter.
What we call 4 point, I don't know.
For $250, and we are looking for what? So do we want to solve this by substitution, elimination, or graphing? If your elimination, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Substitution, raise your hand. Graphing, raise your hand. Elimination it is. Right. So for this one, we need two variables. You can call that P and W, X and Y, does not matter. What would these two represent? What about them specifically? Cost of.
What?
When you have a problem with 6 numbers, all 6 numbers are going to be used in both of your equations. How would we set up these two equations? Ellen, go ahead. Sometimes you may want to wait until after you've set up the equations to decide which method to use. This one would probably be better to use elimination than substitution or graphing, just because you would end up with fractions. Not that that's bad, but if you can avoid them, do that. For this one, since we're looking for how much is a poinsettia, we need to get rid of W. Because when we eliminate our W, P will be left. So we need to think of a number that both of these go into. 18 does work. There's something else. You can do 6. 12 would also work. So there's different ways you could go about doing that. If you just do 6, then we're only multiplying 1. So we'd have 14P plus 6W equals 402. I think that's right. Would we add or subtract these to eliminate them?
When you add,
When one is positive and one is negative.
wait, did we not push the bottom one, so we only did the top one?
We only did the
So
top
you
one.
only add numbers different, like.
And then we can go through and subtract. 4 minus 14 would give us negative 10. Our W's would cancel. Someone subtract 252 and 402 and tell me what it is. And divide both sides by negative 10. We also could have eliminated 22 because 1 in this case it doesn't have dollars and we can't go back to something we already did. So it had to have been 32, 18, or 15, but 15 was our answer. The what question? I'm sorry. This one? No, we didn't because it was only one answer. Okay, for the next one, read this. Tell me what's important.
I'm learning not an architect. I hate this.
Link or rectangle is 1 inch.
I don't remember the word problem.
I hate this for
I'm sorry. Say that again.
The link or rectangle is 1 inch. That's it.
I can't remember a rectangle is triangle.
And what are you looking for? So way back when we did some of these problems, we were actually doing substitution without calling it that. So now that we actually know how to do substitution, it's the same process. We're still going to do the same thing we were doing before, it's just now we actually have a name for what we were doing. We don't need to define our variables because it's just length and width. Let's set up these equations. The length of a rectangle is 1 inch less than 3 times its width. How would we set up that equation? Say that one more time. Say that one more time. I'm sorry. Yeah, it would go to the back. And, Michaela.
Length equals 3 times the width minus 1.
So that would be our length equation. It tells us that we're dealing with perimeter. Does anyone remember the equation to find perimeter? That's area.
Length
Times 4. Not times 4. So length plus width, or 2 times length plus 2 times width. We know our perimeter is 54. Usually that equation equals P, but since we know it's 54, we can say 54 equals 2 times our length plus 2 times our width. Which method is this really good for substitution? So we're going to take this and substitute it in for L. Now, in this case, we're looking for L. So when we do that, our L is going to disappear. We're going to find W. So we're going to have to go back and find L, but that's okay. So this would be 54 equals 2 times 3W minus 1.
Do the arithmetic first. Then you 54 first.
No, if you put it at the end, that's fine. That's just the way I set mine up. Then we can distribute. So 6W minus 2 plus 2W. Combine your left terms to get 8. Add 2 to both sides. And divide both sides by 8. Our width equals 7 what? What's the unit inches? Yes. Okay, but that's not our answer because it asks us to find length, so we have to go back and find length. So if we were to put 7 back into our length equation, what would our length be? 20 inches. Read through this and tell me what's important. And this one we're going to do by graphing. What?
Oh,
I'm sorry. You asked to go to the bathroom. And then you need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, can you just go?
Yeah, give me 1 second. What's important in this one?
And there's 14 short questions and it has a score under. How many short response questions are
Total questions, 100 points,
And how many sort of
Alright, since we are graphing these, I did scroll it down, Olivia. Did you still need to see it? Sorry.
yeah.
I'm just going to use the variables x, y. You can use m and s, c and r if you want, but I'm just going to use x, y. What don't we know? What would we represent, or how? Reword. What would these represent? That's what I-
Horizontal choice questions over
number of multiple choice, number of short answer. For this one, still 4 numbers, so 3 of them are going to go together. Donna?
Okay.
No, go ahead.
2x plus 3y.
So the point values need to go together to get the total score. Those need to go together. And then how would we set up the second one?
X plus y equals
X plus y equals 43. This is the number of multiple choice, the number of short answer, and then the total number of questions. Those gotta go together. Okay, and then we're gonna solve this by graphing. Two x plus 3y equals 100. And x plus y equals 43. 29 and 14. And we're looking for number of short response, which is our y. So we can say y is 14. Read this, tell me what's important. While you're doing that, I'm going to eliminate some of our answers because we can't go to ones we've already been to. So we can't go to 10, can't go to 18 or 7. And we can't go to 16 either because we get stuck.
So we either have to do the end or and it's probably fine because that only makes 2 more work.
Yep.
So it won't work and let's just do the last one.
Oh, I apparently extended this as much as this will go. Oh yeah, that's really long. It's alright. I could have just deleted it, it's fine. Oh, but that's not what I want to do. There we go, now that looks better. Okay. What's important here?
The
820-mile road trip, that is our total.
Miles per hour.
And average 60 miles per hour.
And average 56 miles per hour.
It's 12 and 14 hours.
How many hours do
Right. So you can call this B and L, X and Y, whatever variables you want. We now have all of our choices again. So we'll set this up and then we'll decide how we want to solve this. What would these represent?
The amount of hours.
Each person drove. how would we set up these equations? Go ahead, Val. Equals what?
820.
Total miles equals the average speed, miles per hour, and go ahead. Number of hours one drove plus the other equals total amount of hours. Okay. Who wants to solve this by elimination? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Substitution. You only vote once.
I changed my mind.
Okay. Scrapping. 1, 2, 3. Elimination 1.
It's some.
Substitution would be easy, but elimination 1. I mean, graphing would also be, like, all of them would really be easy for this one. It doesn't matter. You'd have fractions for this one, for graphing, but substitution or elimination would work. So if we're doing elimination, we want to find how many hours Landon drove, so we're going to get rid of B. So we need to make these the same. We're going to multiply it by 60. And I'm going to rewrite both of them.
I have a feeling that he drove for like 4 hours and flipped into
Okay. What's 60 times 820?
4 is an option.
I'm sorry, 60 times 14. 8. 8, what, 40? 8, 40. We would do what to eliminate those? Subtract. So here, if we subtract, our b's go away. This becomes negative 4L. And this becomes negative 20. And then when we divide,
That is incorrect.
L becomes 5 hours.
Wow.
We're gonna do, 1. That's not. Oh, never mind. Do that one.
So the end is, we
Um,
already know the case.
no, we weren't gonna do anymore, I'm sorry. Because we know all the answers.
Yeah.
However, there are, what, 4 we didn't do? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I want you guys to go back and do those. Solve them however you wish. Graphing, substitution, elimination. You know the answers to these 3. This one you may have to check and see which answer that one would be. Did we not do the one in the corner about nickels and quarters, the one in the middle, basketball teams, baseball stadium, and then the admission fee. So you're going to do those 4. If you finish those 4, you can move on to your Delta Math and Khan Academy, but work through these 4 first. Let me know if you have any questions on any of those. Anyone have any questions on what we're doing today? Or for the rest of the class? You guys have this time to work.